Shouting the battle cry of freedom.
So joining me right now is president of Walser Wealth Management and author of the book, Wealth Unbroken. Rebecca Walser, thank you so much for joining. Before I fully bring you in, I want to play something here because a lot of Americans are waking up to this. I want you to see it and give us your take on it. Let's go to the clip.
I came into office at a time of great economic and international instability. Families and businesses were worried about how to pay their bills. Putin's illegal war in Ukraine threatens the security of our whole continent, and our country has been held back for too long by low economic growth. I was elected by the Conservative Party with a mandate to change this. We delivered on energy bills and on cutting national insurance. And we set out a vision for a low-tax, high-growth economy that would take advantage of the freedoms of Brexit. I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party. This morning, I met the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. We've agreed that there will be a leadership election to be completed within the next week. This will ensure that we remain on a path to deliver our fiscal plans and maintain our country's economic stability and national security. I will remain as Prime Minister until a successor has been chosen. Thank you.
So Rebecca, we're watching the Prime Minister resign, basically for the same policies that we are enacting, in my opinion, here. We have a flood of people coming in. They're unaccounted for in the UK, which I was just there very, very recently. Even though they can control who comes in, they seem to have done things, in my opinion, Rebecca, very differently and backwards. Because what they're saying is we're going to lower the tax bracket, but we're not going to stop all of the crazy spending. Rebecca, are we on the path to do the same exact thing here in America, Rebecca?
I mean, obviously, Aubrey, we are. I mean, I actually just graduated from the London School of Economics with my Global Executive MBA, and I was just back from London about 10 days. Spent in London. And, I feel sorry for her because she was brought in to fix a fundamentally broken system. And obviously in 44 days, which is how much time she actually served as prime minister, you're just not going to be able to fix something, especially where the world is on the precipice of the largest economic change in the history of recorded time. So this woman had all of the odds stacked against her. The problem was she didn't recognize what we were actually going through globally, economically speaking, and didn't realize that it wasn't going to be the time to start promulgating tax cuts. When you need to get your fiscal house in order, you don't start by cutting taxes. And I'm a tax lawyer. I am all for tax cuts. But what we have is out of control government spending, and so does the UK, so does all of the EU, even more so. Like if you live in Denmark and you make $60,000 a year as a single person, your tax is $36,000. You take home $24,000 and the government takes home $36,000. So their taxes are a lot higher. They're a lot more progressive than they are in the States. But we are moving very quickly, Aubrey, to that with the retirement en masse of the baby boomers. So by the time we have all the baby boomers fully retired, and we're looking at like 2028, there's still some outliers in 29 and 30, we're going to be in such an upside down fiscal situation with the amount of people. Right now, we have 65 million people accepting Social Security every month, as they should, and they just got an 8.7% increase. So imagine if we, on top of all of that, then said we were going to cut taxes, and that's the UK mess that you have. The investment markets were completely upside down. Liquidity was a massive problem. The pensions were about to fail, and the Bank of England had to step in and buy gilts, which is not something they normally do, unlike the Federal Reserve here in the States. So this was all too much, too fast, and she just didn't really have a chance.
And I really feel bad for her too as well, Rebecca. Actually, I really enjoyed hearing her speech. I watched her before the Parliament that was there, and I just felt the same way. I mean, you just echoed my real sentiment, and that is, wait a minute, those guys still got to address the fact that they have too much that is obviously coming in, and obviously they're not importing and doing some other things. But I want to make sure that we stay focused here because, again, I'm looking at what's going on in the UK. I'm looking at, Rebecca, what's going on in France. I'm looking at what's going on in the Netherlands. And I am looking at that, and I'm looking at our policies here. I had an opportunity during the 2015-16 era to travel within the candidate, Donald Trump. I have to say that for full disclosure, I am one of the few that made it into Hillary Clinton's book as by name as one of the reasons that she lost. I'm in her book by name. I get it. But I'm a American citizen. I don't do all the racial crap that everyone does. Just not there. My head's not there. I see us as American. Rebecca, I'm concerned. As an American citizen, we're going down the wrong path as the UK. Am I overstating that, Rebecca?
No, we are in the middle of irregular warfare, Aubrey. This is what's happening. And so what am I talking about? I'm talking about the conglomeration of globalist groups like the World Economic Forum pushing things like the Great Reset, and people moving forward blindly because they want to be protective of the environment. They hear that the environment and the world can't support through the use of fossil fuels, all of this 8 billion people on planet Earth. We can't burn up our planet and our fossil fuels. And so people like you and me, we hear these things and we say, we want to be good stewards of the planet. We want our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren to inherit a beautiful planet. So we don't want to be the culprits. And so we start to go along with these global groups that necessarily haven't clearly produced the science to prove it. I mean, Al Gore, if you look back at some of his rhetoric, he was saying we were going to be, with no livable Earth by 2010. That didn't happen. So the bottom line is, instead of convincing the world of the science of climate change, they've decided instead to say the science is settled, and they are moving us towards a green agenda that is called the Great Reset. It is a digital and economic agenda that is now being pushed and hoisted upon us globally across this earth, whether we like it or not, without a vote. And this is what's happening. And this administration, you can see they've put 3 of their administration spokespeople forward in the last 10 days, and they've all said that we can't ask oil companies to go back and produce more because that would slow down the transition. And they start talking about this word, the transition. I'm sorry, where was that in a policy procedure? Who laid that out? Who approved that?
Rebecca, you're onto something. Can I bring you right back after this hard break here? Because I want our audience to really hear what you're saying. We're going to come right back. This is a moment that all of us as Americans, we need to pay attention to. I'm going to make sure that you hear this unedited. We'll be right back.
We rally round the flagpoles, rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
So again, joining me right now is president of Walser Wealth Management and author of a fantastic book. I recommend everyone pick it up. Wealth Unbroken is Rebecca Walser. Thank you again, Rebecca, for just kind of jumping in here with us. We've been talking about how this idea, once it made guys like me look like, oh, I'm a conspiratorial nut job. I've been saying this, singing this, if I could sing, that is, but I've been screaming this, saying, hey, these things matter. Policies matter. Who you put in office matter. And when you just highlight it, one of the parts of the global reset, I was thinking, even this past week, Rebecca, I look at Noonan out there in California saying, hey, we're going to do you guys a great service here. We're going to make sure that even your license plates, they're all digital. Now, I see a problem with it. Am I reading too much into that?
No. And so, as I was mentioning, Aubrey, we are in an irregular warfare. You're not seeing tanks on the streets. You're not seeing a takeover. You're not seeing, things happening that are so obvious that we'd all stand up and say, wait, time out, what is going on here? So we're not saying that because they're doing this by stealth. And they decided to do this by stealth because they couldn't settle the science and convince the world that it was settled and that it needed to be done. So what they've done is they have created a public-private partnership between the World Economic Forum. And I have to say, if you look at Agenda 2030 and go to their website, go to the wfforum.org website and look up Agenda 2030 and see the things that they put into this document in writing. You cannot be a conspiracy theorist if you read the document and state what the document states. That's it. It's settled. They want certain things. They want us to move away from meat consumption and production, and they want us to move to proteins that are bugs. They are already testing this out in Australia. We already have kids eating mealworms for snacks in Australia as we speak. If you look at the Netherlands, they've already implemented the fertilizer nitrogen restrictions where the farmers are having their farms taken now. They can't produce 30% of what they were producing before, which makes them economically unviable. And the government's going to buy up the farms on pennies on the dollar. This is a concerted global effort across all nations to move us off of oil and petrochemical products that are used in fertilizers that allow us to feed 8 billion people a year, to move us back to more agrarian types, non-chemical based, and they think that they probably can only support a population of less than 2 billion people. Well, when you do the math, that means they're talking about the elimination of 6 billion people. And that is not a pleasant conversation, and that is not a peaceful conversation. That is a death conversation that they are not coming out and boldly stating they want us to have. But the farmers are revolting in the Netherlands. The farmers are going to revolt in Canada. You're going to see an uprising, and it's already happening. It's just not being actually covered in America on the mainstream news, Aubrey, but it's already happening every single weekend. In Europe and across the world, there are thousands of people protesting every weekend these restrictions on our ability to grow and maintain food and population. So it is happening. The UN and the WWF signed a memorandum of understanding to move up Agenda 2030 to 2023. That is next year. They are using digital surveillance, digital identity. You will no longer be able to get into your phone or the internet at all without your digital ID and digital identity. So everything that you do will be 100% known. There will be anything longer that will be anonymous. We are going to have social credit scores tied to our credit scores that will have a personal, greenhouse gas consumption number tied to it. You might have to buy carbon credits. This is the world. They are pushing us forward as fast as possible without discussion and debate because they will lose that debate.
Well, of course they'll lose the debate because anytime you have a mano-a-mano moment with someone who have done the research, done the study, know the facts, know the data, they can't win the argument. This is why they have activists, judges, etc., and those in the department that are pushing it. And I really feel bad because we have a gentleman in the Oval Office with obvious senility that has already crept in. He's obviously being controlled. What are you doing to make sure, Rebecca, that this information is getting out? So as I was saying, Rebecca, in a nutshell, we were actually showing a lot of film of those that are protesting across Europe. Those things are happening. What are you doing? What is your group doing to push back on what seems to be inevitable? But in the United States of America, one thing that I know about Americans and history is that when we get sick and tired of something, we will revolt. What's going on in your neck of the woods that you're pushing back? How does that look? Give us a snapshot, Rebecca, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, I will have to say, I absolutely believe that the move of the Great Reset and moving us to central bank digital currencies will fail, because I believe that Americans will realize that a central bank digital currency is actually a voucher system that's fully controllable by, in this case, in America, would be FedNow, which is the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, not a government entity, that it was chartered by Congress in 1913. So we have to, as Americans, join together and stand against central bank digital currency. And it's not because we don't like decentralized finance and we like, digital money. It's not the problem that is digital. It's a problem that's digital through a private entity called the Federal Reserve that will control and have absolute control and ability to manipulate everything. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that the money is programmable. Okay. So they can say, okay, here's the money, but you can only spend this through the end of the 30 days and then the money will evaporate. It will expire. Or they'll say, here's your money, but this is your food money budget. And I'm just giving you some examples of things that they're planning. Here's your food money budget, and you can't spend it except for at these 3 grocery stores. You can't go out to eat with it, and it will expire. So it is really a digital coupon voucher system that is 100% controllable with zero autonomy. There will be no more money into a, anonymous donation, no more anonymous anything. Nothing is anonymous. Everything is trackable and traceable and therefore controllable. And of course, it will start off nice, but it will eventually be 100% a controlled totalitarian system. So I actually don't believe that will come to fruition as much as everyone in the world is trying to push for it, the global central bankers. I'm actually believing that when the West was so arrogant to kick Russia out of the SWIFT payment system for their incursion into Ukraine, Russia has been working with China and the BRICS nations really over the last 2 decades to develop an alternative global reserve currency. We know that Russia, China are planning on, they've already announced a new reserve currency that will be backed by rare earth minerals and precious metals. When you look at how much money Turkey is buying in gold, bullion, when you see the amount of institutional buys in gold, and when you know that the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of all central bankers of the world, changed their requirements, Basel III it's called, and they moved gold from a tier 3 asset class to a tier 1 asset class, you can see the writing is on the wall. This world is moving to multipolarity. The dollar will no longer be the sole reserve currency. The petrodollar is ended, and we will have 2 polarity system between the West and the US and the BRICS nations. And that will force America to move also back to a currency-backed system, a hard asset-backed system again. And we will see the end of debt fiat currency as we know it, which is what we need to end, Aubrey, because that is the source of all of the problems of our asset bubbles.
Rebecca Walser, I really appreciate you taking a moment. I got to bring you back. I have a lot of guys and just a lot of friends, guys and girls across the country and outside of the country. They address issues of this magnitude as well, have some just fantastic core conundrum of guys and girls that really make sense. And I really mean this with all sincerity, no flattery here. Your insight, your understanding, not just because of the jurisprudence background, but because what you're speaking economically is something that those of us who did not matriculate through the university to get our JD in those things, we get it. We understand it. This is why we vote the way we do. This is why we are engaged the way that we are engaged. Take 10 seconds, if you don't mind. Where can our audience find you, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. If you Google me, you'll find me everywhere. I'm all over, but definitely Walser Wealth, WALSER, walserwealth.com is our website. And we just want to help people get through this mess. This is going to be a transition. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be painful, especially for America. But if you make the right moves, you can really try to guide yourself as best you can through this situation.
Rebecca Walser, thank you so much. And I want to just invite everyone to make sure that you go out. As a matter of fact, flood her platform. Let her know not that you're just paying attention. Pick up a book. It's a great read. Everyone should pay attention to these things that are going on. Why? Because as Americans, it impacts all of us. We're going to come right back at the end of this block here. I want to share a last point and a last thought with you. Stay tuned.
Hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitor, up with the star.